In the late 1800s, attending college was rising in popularity. There were several reasons for this, but in an era where most families were working hard just to put food on the table, a person with a college education quite simply made more money. Among those who didn't struggle financially, a college education seemed to guarantee higher social status. Yes, the late 1800s became the crucial period during which college going became popular, and colleges and universities stopped having to worry so much about paying the bills.
But his brain was so loaded it nearly exploded. The poor girl.
It was in this same period of time, around the turn of the century, that the nation became fascinated with college life. Not the life inside the classroom, but rather the life college students were living outside the classroom. The pride of the insiders and the curiosity of the outsiders worked together to drive a publicity steam engine that fueled the nation's lust for the college experience. In 1903, Hines and Noble published a collection of college songs including Contributions of this era included college mascots in school colors. Harvard proudly chose its crimson, and Dartmouth its green, although Brown had a somewhat less difficult time choosing its colors. Schools such as Georgetown College and the University of Virginia had a slightly more difficult struggle. UVA, for instance, chose gray and red, but settled for blue and orange due to a dye shortage at the printer. Naturally, once colors were chosen, schools began choosing mascots to help them cheer on their athletic teams. In an obvious attempt to sound ferocious, the University of Pennsylvania became the Fighting Quakers, Whittier College, the Fighting Poets, and Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons. Although these were quite fitting mascots, the historic institutions chose more traditional mascots, like the Princeton Tigers, the Yale Bulldogs, and the California Golden Bears. As excitement continued to rise about the college lifestyle, the academic affairs inside the classroom became less popular topics of conversation. As students were portraying college life as a fun, prank-filled, full realization of late adolescence, the classroom was at the same time being portrayed as a necessary evil. A simple comparison of a basic college catalog and a college yearbook illustrate the differences of how administration viewed college and how students viewed college. College was quickly becoming less of a place for academic challenge and more of a rite of initiation that bonded students and alumni. Where you went to college was more important than what you learned in college.
What really happens behind the padlocked doors of this windowless building? The Tomb of Skull and Bones, Yale's oldest secret society. Its members include some of America's most powerful and privileged elite, all sworn to secrecy.
There was also a subculture that existed within the walls of the American Institution of Higher Learning. As students entered the school, there was a quick sprint for positions of power in campus organizations, including the football team, editorial clubs, literary magazines, and countless others. These BMOCs were considered the student leaders of campus culture. In addition to well-known organizations on campus, secret organizations were also formed. A key difference to most secret organizations is that the members were typically chosen toward the end of their college career rather than the beginning. These secret societies garnered the attention of the American public due largely to their secrecy and selective membership. The more these college ideals were marketed to the American public, the more and more students wanted to attend colleges and universities. But Could they afford it? Around 1910, less than 5% of the American population of 18 to 20-year-olds went to college. Colleges recruited largely from private feeder high schools to ensure a student body that was academically prepared for the college classroom. Although the cost of a college education rose very little between 1890 and 1910, attendance was still cost prohibitive for women and most students of color. With favorable higher-paying jobs being granted to white males, colleges immediately began to look like that demographic. Coincidentally, during this golden era of the American universities, colleges were experiencing high dropout rates and low bachelor completion levels. Unfortunately, many historical records from this period illustrate fabricated retention rates and unreal, nostalgic stories and songs that painted a rose-colored picture of university life. In an effort to maintain the college ideal, intercollegiate sports became the vehicle by which many schools hoped to improve the college experience. Sports were completely student-run. Many alumni groups funded the sports in order to keep the activity free from the control of school administration. However, the competitive nature of the sports, along with the entertainment value of them, led to the creation of athletic associations, commercialism, and ultimately, corruption. The most successful type of schools between 1880 and 1920 were women's colleges. A home for women from prosperous families, the women's colleges had superior facilities due to large endowments and a culture of socially advantaged young women with a shared commitment to good education. The seven sisters of Wellesley, Radcliffe, Mount Holyoke, Smith, Vassar, Bernard, and Bryn Mawr were key players in creating an environment for confident, affluent, poised young women who brought to the women's colleges all the advantages of wealth, academic preparation, and social graces. Although these colleges were a place where women seeking education were welcomed, the typical university was not open to the female student. Many female students were called names, considered second-class citizens in the campus community, and were even treated unequally by faculty and administration. The University of Chicago was the first to create a successful strategy to integrate women into the university system. By providing women their own housing and separate clubs and activities, 48% of the university were women by 1902. Unfortunately, these positive policies were later reversed in favor of gender segregation because of what was deemed to be a harmful system for the male population. Women weren't the only ones being left out of the college experience at the turn of the century. A survey of major media outlets of the day revealed that blacks were all but ignored as the nation pressed forward in their pursuit of education. However, in a nation that did not recognize the contribution of the black student, Howard University and Fisk University were distinctive institutions dedicated to highly educated leadership among the black population. Unfortunately, as these two institutions became accepted by the higher education community, their student body began to look more like the typical self-indulgent group of students, caring more for the social and party scene than the classroom. Needless to say, college life at the turn of the century became much broader than a means by which to receive an education. In fact, Woodrow Wilson suggested that college life had become about anything other than the academic pursuit. He once said, quote, "So far as the colleges go, the sideshows have swallowed up the circus, and we in the main tent do not know what is going on." End quote. This was one of the factors that contributed to what John Thelin considers the greatest disappointment in the college ideal during the period, an emphasis on conformity and a discouragement of imagination. Although emphasis on social status and conformity existed within colleges and universities, the majority of the collegiate population were simply less vocal, but were responsible for starting some important trends in campus living. For instance, while the vocal minority was gathering for a dinner club or high society banquet, the majority of students were finding community over meals in a new concept called the student union. Concepts like student unions and athletics continued to entice more and more people to pursue a college experience. However, as more people applied to colleges, the schools became more selective. Instead of accepting a more diverse group of students who were now seeking higher education, colleges became more selective in an attempt to increase homogeneity within campus culture. Surprisingly for universities, these newer, larger, similar classes of students became more unruly and autonomous. College presidents realized this during this period, just after the turn of the century, that professionals should be hired to deal with these new issues that had risen due to the out-of-control student culture. This was the birth of student affairs, which is obviously the most important addition to colleges and universities during the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Wake up!